Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have the opportunity to talk about Chapter 12 here, which has to do with food and all the goodies that come along with that. So let's start off and let's get into Section 1 of it a little bit. So, first of all, when we talk about food, we need to talk about two things: food security and food insecurity, which, if you can't tell, are opposites of one another. Food security is just basically knowing that there's enough food present for people to live an active, healthy life in a given area. And of course, food insecurity is where we don't have that. We have chronic hunger and poor nutrition. And in the world as a whole, unfortunately, we have a lot of food insecurity. About 1 in 6 people in developing countries cannot grow or buy the food they need. And so it's an issue that we have to take care of. Also, when we talk about food, we talk about macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are the big amounts of stuff we need. We need lots of protein, carbs, and fats in our diet. We just do. And so that's important. And then you also need a lot of micronutrients in your diet. You need vitamin A and B and C and thiamine and all of those little teeny tiny lovely things that you need in your diet as well. If you don't get enough of either one of these, it creates health problems. And so when we don't get enough of those things, we run into this situation. Chronic undernutrition is when we're simply not getting enough basic energy. Usually that's just simply we're not getting enough calories. We're hungry because we're not getting enough calories in our diet. And so that's one thing we can worry about. Or we can worry about chronic malnutrition, where we're lacking specific things we need. We're lacking specific nutrients. It could be a vitamin A, it could be proteins, it could be any specific component of that. And so what's the root cause of this malnutrition and this undernutrition and malnutrition? Of course, it's poverty. And so poverty creates a lot of this problem. 862 million people are undernutritioned in the world. They don't get enough food. They simply don't get enough. And as a result, it causes lots of problems. So there's an estimate about 6 million children are dying from not having enough food, or they have some kind of other disease, but their poor diet doesn't allow them to live, or they get worse as a result of it. And so feeding people is an important thing. And so when we're talking about that, we can also talk about another thing. So 1 in 3 people aren't getting enough specific vitamins and minerals with this malnutrition thing. They're getting both their undernutrition and malnutrition possibly, and they're not getting enough, say, iron in their diet, and they can become anemic. And that doesn't, you can be not just poor and have that problem. Some people don't eat enough foods that have high iron in them in the United States from wealthy families. And so you've got to make sure you get enough specific things. And so iron is one of those. Vitamin A is another one. This is usually an impoverished situation where you don't get enough vitamin A. It can cause blindness in people. And you don't get enough iodine. And this one used to be a problem, a lot more of a problem, lots of places, and it's still a big problem in developing countries. What happens is your thyroid gland, which is in your neck, swells up and gets this big bulge on it, and you get that goiter. And that can cause all kinds of problems. In the United States, the way they've resolved that is they take your table salt and they put iodine in it. And so if you look at it on the label, it'll tell you there's iodine present in your table salt, and that helps solve a lot of these problems for us. When we have these problems, it creates famines. This is just a shortage of food in specific places, and that can cause lots of terrible starvation and issues. And it's usually caused by a couple things. It's usually caused by, of course, crop failures in those places as a result of droughts, flooding. War can create these problems, or other catastrophic things like tsunamis and things like that. And so famine is something that we take care of in the United States by we dispense a lot of money and aid to other countries that are suffering as a result of famine because they don't have the infrastructure to solve the problems themselves. Now, if you want to take the other end of the spectrum, we have overnutrition. And this is not a problem as much worldwide as it is in the United States, of course, where we have we take in extra calories and we don't do enough exercise. And this can result in life quality issues, poor health, and premature death. If you remember to last unit, we talked about what causes early death in people, and being overweight by 15% or 35%, if you remember, can take years off your life. And so Boston University did a study that said 60% of Americans are overweight and 33% are chronically overweight. And so it's a big issue in the United States. And so as a result, Americans try to solve that problem. They're not happy with their image, their body, and they've eaten too much in their opinions. And so they spend about $42 billion a year trying to lose that excess weight. They are, they are doing all of the exercises and diet plans and machines and all kinds of things they're buying to lose that weight. The ironic thing is if you were to take just about half that, a little more over half that, $24 billion of that money, and you were to dispense that around the world, you could eliminate world hunger. There's some irony in that statistic, isn't there? All right, so that's into section 1. We'll talk about section 2 next.